20,000 troops in Ceuta can be ready for battle in 2 minutes, but it's only to keep them on their toes. There's little else to do. There are adequate and perhaps better training grounds in Spain itself. Franco prefers to train his troops here, ready to counter any move against King Hassan. The king, aware of the advantage of their presence, keeps a tactful silence about the bases and doesn't turn the economic screw too tight. Every year in Ceuta, Spaniards remember the day 30 years ago when troops of the Spanish Foreign Legion based here were called to fight for Franco in the Spanish Civil War. It was their intervention that swung the war in Franco's favour. Among the patriots who celebrate the anniversary are members of Franco's youth movement, the Phalangists. For its own purposes, his regime keeps alive the memory of the Civil War, even among a generation born long after it was over. The young ones and the older ones are taught to regard Ceuta as an integral part both of Spanish history and Spanish territory.
Arriba, escuadras a vencer, que en España empieza a amanecer.
España.
Una.
España.
Grande.
España.
Libre.
Arriba España.
Arriba.
East of Ceuta lies another Spanish base, Vélez de la Gomera, another thorn in Morocco's side. Once it was an island fort. Then a freak sandstorm threw up the causeway that now joins it to the mainland. So Morocco argues that it belongs to her, and like Ceuta, Vélez is blockaded. It has a helicopter landing pad for use in emergencies. And a harbour for supply boats. But for the troops stationed on it, Vélez is a desolate, disenchanting place. The soldiers are its only inhabitants, the civilians left because of the blockade, and they serve here for 5 months at a stretch, with no relief from the boredom of it all. Vélez keeps in touch with Ceuta by radio. Otherwise, it has no daily link with the outside world. The radio station is housed in one of the dungeons left over from the days when the fortress at Vélez was used as a political prison. The soldiers' mess, too, is a historical monument dating back 400 years. The catering arrangements are not exactly modern either. The island has no refrigerators, so the troops get fresh food only once a week. And when it does come in, the tiny garrison enjoys the nearest thing it ever gets to a gala binge. For the rest of the time, they eat from the ample supply of tins in the fortress dungeons below. Supplies come in civilian ships, which cost the Spanish government nearly £200,000 a year to run. They don't use a naval tender because the Spanish bases along the coastline are still officially civilian areas and not exclusively for military use. Since the blockade, the only visitors have been soldiers and passing tourists with an eye for the bizarre. So coastal trade has fallen off, and the weekly boat is the only real event in the garrison's life. But the troops marooned on Vélez for 20 long weeks at a time don't worry what sort of ship brings their supplies. They only know that it also brings them news from home.
saltar con extensión de brazos en cruz y arriba dando palmas. ¡Ay! ¡Aló! ¡Os! ¡Ep! ¡Aló! ¡Aló! ¡Os! ¡Ep! ¡Aló! ¡Aló!
Daily PT keeps the men on Veleth fit. But fit for what? That's the question they have plenty of time to ponder. The island's military value is doubtful. Franco keeps troops here because if they did quit, Spain's claim over her other North African bases would be undermined. A further 40 miles to the east lies the small rocky fortress of Peñón de Alucemas, another few square yards of historic Spanish soil. For centuries, Spanish troops stationed here had to defend themselves against the Rift tribesmen. Today's garrison has a much more passive role to play. Like Veleth, the island has no military value. In fact, there's only one main standing order for its garrison: to blow the place up in the unlikely event of an invasion. Life here is even more frustrating than on Veleth, because here, less than half a mile away on the mainland, the troops can watch people in confinement of a more pleasurable kind. This French holiday club makes a big profit for its owners. Spain would like to set up a similar tourist attraction on her offshore fort. But despite the sacrifice of much-needed foreign currency, the Moroccans won't allow holidaymakers even to visit the island, let alone stay there. So, for the tourists, it remains just a picturesque background for their beach life. And for others, just another parade ground.
De frente sobre el hombro. ¡Ahí va!
Mira ahora pegado a la puerta.
Eastwards again to Melilla, the most distant and most populous of Franco's North African outposts. Melilla alone escapes the Moroccan blockade. Local Moroccan tribes depend on its trade for their livelihood, and the Moroccan government can't afford to subsidize them. So, while the other enclaves stagnate, Melilla prospers.
Señoras, señores, muy buenos días. Transmite para ustedes Radio Melilla, primera emisora española del norte de África. Les ofrecemos, amables oyentes, un programa musical. Aquí Melilla.
Melilla's radio programs are limited in scope, but customers at the newspaper kiosks get the same selection as in Madrid. For Melilla, with a population of 100,000, is a cosmopolitan commercial centre for businessmen from Morocco, Algeria, Europe as well. 10% of the population of Melilla are Arabs, and they see no reason to live at daggers drawn with their Spanish neighbours. It's bad for business. Commerce counts for more than politics in Melilla, where the money changers take swift advantage of currency restrictions introduced by neighbouring countries. Into their ample trouser pockets go thousands of pesetas, Algerian francs and Moroccan dirhams. Melilla has virtually the status of a free port. The businessmen of North Africa find a natural haven here to conduct their business deals undisturbed. As far as the law is concerned, it's all quite legal. Traffic between Melilla and its Moroccan hinterland remains surprisingly friendly. Outside the city, at the Moroccan border posts, the Kabyle tribesmen from the Rif Mountains come and go unhindered. Spain lets them bring their produce in customs-free. It's cheaper than importing supplies from the Spanish mainland, and it keeps relations with the tribesmen good. The Arabs here are better disposed towards the Spaniards, their former colonial overlords, than they are towards their own government in Rabat. They make good use of trips to Melilla to smuggle home in their capacious robes anything in short supply. Tribesmen go back daily to the mountains having sold their wares. The Spaniards go back daily to a ceremony at their ancient fortress. The ceremony reminds them of how their base was enlarged just over a century ago. The Sultan of Morocco agreed that it could be expanded by the distance of 18 cannon shots fired in a semicircle. The Spaniards chose their biggest gun for the job, and nowadays, every day at noon, they go through the boundary-beating routine.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
So the boundaries of Melilla are marked today by 18 large frontier stones, and they are checked regularly by a cavalry patrol of the Spanish Civil Guard. They have to pass each frontier stone exactly on the minute, and at any of the 18 border posts, they're liable to find an officer waiting to make a snap check on their progress. This leisurely Ruritanian ritual is watched by Moroccan frontier officials, but the military atmosphere is brisker at Melilla barracks. Every morning, 20,000 men drill at Melilla, Franco's largest parade ground. Their purpose is clear: to show any doubting Thomas that Franco means to defend the last shreds of his empire. What is less clear today is how long Franco's troops will go on marching here after he's gone.